The branding iron hissed against the calf's hide, and the smell of singed hair curled through the spring air. Sam Bridger held the tool steady, his right hand wrapped around the handle, three-fingered burn scar visible in the morning light. 8 ranch hands worked the corral, voices low, dust rising with each ball, then hooves pounded the ridge trail. Silas Darnell rode up with the county clerk, both men smug-faced. Silas dismounted, pulled a folded paper from his coat. "Bridger," he called loud enough for every man to hear, "homestead claim 1862B47 deemed invalid per revised survey. 60 days, then this land goes to auction." The hands stopped working. Tom Cassidy's jaw tightened. Sam's fingers shook, ink smudging under his thumb. A woman's voice cut through the silence. "Kind eyes?" Sam turned. An Apache woman stood by the well, her dark eyes locked on his scarred palm. Sam stared at the woman. She was young, maybe 30, with long black hair braided over one shoulder. Her clothes were simple: leather riding skirt, cotton blouse, boots worn smooth from miles. She dismounted from an Appaloosa with the ease of someone who'd been born in a saddle. "Do I know you, ma'am?" Sam's voice came out rougher than he intended. She walked toward the well, her steps unhurried. The ranch hands watched, uncertain. Tom shifted his weight, hand drifting near his belt. Silas smirked from his horse. The woman drew water from the bucket, lifting it with both hands. She drank, then lowered the dipper slowly. When she looked at Sam again, her gaze dropped to his right hand. "You pulled me from Red Bluff Creek," she said quietly. "I was 8 years old. Spring flood, 1872. You threw a rope around a cottonwood branch. I was holding on, barely. You jumped in. The current tried to take you both." Sam's breath caught. The memory slammed into him: thunder, black water, a child's scream, the rope burning his palm as he fought the flood. "You wrapped me in your coat," she continued. "Told me, 'Stay brave, little one. The water can't break you if you don't let it.'" Tom stepped closer, his eyes wide. "Boss, that true?" Sam nodded slowly, his throat tight. "I remember. Child was half drowned. Her people came for her after the storm passed." The woman removed her left glove. A thin scar circled her wrist, rope pale against brown skin. "You saved my life." "Glad you made it," Sam managed. He glanced at Silas, then back at her. "But if you came all this way to say thanks, you picked a bad day for it." She smiled faintly. "I didn't come to thank you." Silas laughed from his saddle. "Well, this is touching, Bridger, real heartwarming. Doesn't change the fact that your claim's invalid. Auction's in 58 days. He tipped his hat mockingly and rode off, the clerk scrambling to follow. The hands stood frozen, uncertain whether to get back to work. Tom cleared his throat. "Boys, them cattle ain't gonna brand themselves." The men moved reluctantly, glancing back as Sam walked toward the cabin. The woman followed without asking permission. Inside, the cabin smelled of old coffee and wood smoke. Sam tossed the foreclosure notice onto the rough-hewn table. The paper crinkled, loud in the silence. "Name's Kaya," the woman said, standing in the doorway. "Kaya Redstone." "Sam Bridger, but I reckon you knew that already." She stepped inside, her eyes taking in the small room, the stone fireplace, the faded photograph of a woman on the mantel, the Bible with a yellowed scroll tucked inside. "Your wife?" Kaya asked, nodding toward the photograph. "Clara, died 7 years back. Cholera." "I'm sorry." Sam picked up the foreclosure notice, reading it again, even though the words hadn't changed. "Says here my homestead never met the acreage requirement. Continuous habitation 640 acres. I built this place with my own hands in 1872. Never missed a day." Kaya moved closer, reading over his shoulder. Her braids smelled faintly of sage. "They're lying." "Probably, but lies written on legal paper still got weight." She reached into the leather pouch at her belt, pulling out a small folded parchment. The paper was old, edges brittle. "I have a deed, too." Sam glanced at it. "What's that got to do with my land?" "Maybe everything." She didn't unfold it. "I came here to marry you, Sam Bridger." He nearly dropped the foreclosure notice. "Marry me? Girl, you lost your mind on the trail?" "No." Her voice was calm, steady. "I came because I made a promise to myself. When I was old enough, strong enough, I'd find the man who saved me. I'd spend my life beside him." Sam shook his head, half laughing from disbelief. "That's real kind of you, Kaya. But I'm 58 years old. You got your whole life ahead. You don't owe me nothing." "I know I don't owe you. I choose this. The door swung open. A younger man stepped in, broad-shouldered, with Sam's gray eyes and Clara's sharp jaw. Daniel Bridger, 30 years old and full of suspicion. Pa, who's this? Daniel's tone was cold. Daniel, this is Kaya. She's, Apache. Daniel finished. His gaze swept over her with barely concealed hostility. And she just showed up, right when some banker's trying to steal your land? He turned to Kaya. What do you really want? Kaya met his stare without flinching. I want to help your father keep what's his. Daniel snorted. By marrying him? That's your plan? Daniel, Sam warned. No, Pa, you can't be serious about this. Kaya's hand tightened around the parchment in her pouch. She spoke quietly, but her words carried weight. That deed won't matter if I'm his wife. Community property law. What's mine becomes his. Sam stared at her. What are you saying? She finally unfolded the parchment, laying it on the table beside the foreclosure notice. The paper was old, but the ink was clear. Federal Land Office seal, dated 1875, Chief Redstone's mark at the bottom. 200 acres of red bluff, Kaya said softly. My grandfather's land, gifted to me when he died. It overlaps your ranch, Sam. Daniel leaned over the table, studying the deed. His expression shifted from anger to confusion. Is this real? Federal Registry, Kaya said. Surveyors can argue about your father's claim all they want. They can't touch mine. The emergency town meeting packed the land office until men stood shoulder to shoulder against the walls. The air was thick with tobacco smoke and sweat. Sam stood near the back, Tom beside him, both silent. Kaya waited outside. Daniel had insisted she stay clear until called. Silas Darnell stood at the front table, a large map spread before him. The county clerk hovered nearby, pale and nervous. Judge Moss's empty chair sat at the head of the room like an accusation. Gentlemen, Silas began, his voice smooth as oiled leather, we're here to address the Bridger homestead claim. As you know, the railroad's proposed a route through this territory, brings commerce, jobs, progress, but we need clear land titles. A homesteader near the front spoke up. Sam's title been clear for 20 years, Silas smiled thinly. That's what we thought, until the county surveyor reviewed the original 1872 plat. He tapped the map. Turns out, there was a calculation error. Bridger's acreage comes to 612 acres, not 640. Homestead Act requires 640 minimum for patent approval. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sam's jaw clenched. Tom called out, Where's the original survey document? The clerk shifted his weight, avoiding eye contact. Lost in the courthouse fire, 1889. Convenient, Tom muttered. We have certified copies, Silas said quickly. Signed by the territorial surveyor. Everything's legal. Father Miguel stood from his bench near the window. His white hair caught the afternoon light. The Homestead Act is federal law, Mr. Darnell. County surveys can't override federal patents already granted. True, Father. Which is why we've petitioned the Federal Land Office for review. In the meantime, Silas slid a second document across the table. The county has authority to auction contested claims. Proceeds held in escrow until the dispute's resolved. Sam pushed forward through the crowd. You're saying you can sell my land while some federal clerk in Austin decides if I really own it? Silas met his gaze. I'm saying the law allows protective measures. If the land office rules in your favor, you get your property back and keep the auction proceeds. If not, he shrugged. The buyer keeps the land. You keep the money. Fair, either way. Fair? Sam's voice rose. You move the boundary markers and call it fair? Careful, Bridger, that's slander. Tom stepped forward. Where's Judge Moss? He'd never allow this. Circuit Court, the clerk said quickly. 3 weeks in the hill country, won't be back for a month. The timing was too perfect. Sam's hands shook. How much is the railroad paying you, Silas? The room went silent. Silas's smile never wavered. The Southern Pacific is offering $12,000 for a right-of-way easement through your property, Sam. That's generous. More than the land's worth. You could take it, start fresh somewhere easier. No lawsuit, no auction, no shame. Shame? Sam's voice was low, dangerous. A man your age, fighting a losing battle. Everyone watching, that's hard. The door opened. Kaya stepped inside, and every head turned. She moved through the crowd with quiet dignity, stopping beside Sam. Her presence shifted the room's energy. Silas raised an eyebrow. And who's this? Kaya Redstone, she said clearly. I'm here to marry Sam Bridger. Gasps, whispers. A merchant near the window laughed nervously. Silas stared, then grinned wide. Well now, that's unexpected. Kaya placed her hand on Sam's scarred palm, lifting it for everyone to see. 20 years ago, this man jumped into a flood to save a child he didn't know. He risked his life. He told me to stay brave, that water couldn't break me if I didn't let it. Her voice carried to every corner. I was that child. This scar, she touched her wrist, matches his. Same rope, same day, same courage. The room stilled. Even the skeptics leaned forward. He asked for nothing, Kaya continued. Expected nothing, but I never forgot. I came here to stand beside him, to marry him, and to bring this. She pulled the parchment from her pouch, unfolding it carefully. Father Miguel stepped forward, examined it, then nodded. Federal Land Office Registry fee, Father Miguel announced. Apache Land Cession, 1875. Chief Redstone retained 200 acres at Red Bluff in exchange for territorial relocation. This deed transfers that parcel to his granddaughter, Kaya Redstone. And Silas's smile faltered. What's that got to do with? It overlaps Sam Bridger's claim, Kaya said, which means any auction of his land includes land I already own. Federal law recognizes tribal deeds, Mr. Darnell. You can't sell what belongs to me. The crowd erupted. Homesteaders cheered. Merchants muttered. The clerk looked like he might vomit. Silas recovered quickly, his voice cutting through the noise. Touching story, Miss Redstone. Real touching. But an Apache squaw's word won't stop this auction. The county's authority is clear. Judge Moss can sort it out when he returns, after the sale. He glanced at the clerk. Auction is set for 58 days from today, noon, town square. Kaya's expression didn't change, but Sam felt her hand tighten on his. Silas gathered his papers, then paused at the door. Oh, and Bridger? If you're really planning to marry this woman, you might want to check her legal status first. Her tribe left the reservation without permission last year. Federal marshals are still looking for some of them. He walked out. The clerk scurried after him. The crowd broke into arguments, some supporting Sam, others muttering about railroad money in progress. Tom put a hand on Sam's shoulder. We'll fight this, boss. Father Miguel approached Kaya. I'll research the tribal deed tonight. There may be legal precedent we can use. Daniel stood near the wall, his face unreadable. He looked at Kaya, then at his father, then walked out without a word. Sam turned to Kaya. You didn't tell me about the reservation trouble. Would it have changed anything? He wanted to say yes, wanted to protect her from the mess his life had become. But when he looked at her calm, steady eyes, he couldn't lie. No, he said quietly. Reckon it wouldn't. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dirt street. Silas Darnell stood by his horse, watching them through the land office window. He was smiling. The next morning, Kaya joined the branding crew at dawn. The ranch hands eyed her warily as she tied her horse to the corral fence. Tom handed her a pair of leather gloves without a word. Ever worked cattle? One of the younger hands asked, skepticism clear in his voice. Some, Kaya said. The calf came through the chute bawling, hooves scraping wood. 2 men wrestled it down. Tom heated the iron in the fire, the metal glowing orange. He held it out to Kaya. You don't have to, Sam started. She took the iron, the handle hot even through the gloves. The weight felt familiar. She pressed it firmly against the calf's hide, holding steady for 3 seconds. The smell of singed hair filled the air. When she lifted it, the brand was clean, perfect. The hands exchanged glances. By midday, she'd branded 12 calves without hesitation. When a young steer broke loose, she grabbed a rope from the fence rail and had a loop around its neck before the nearest cowboy could react. The steer fought, but she held firm, boots digging into dirt until Tom could secure it. One of the older hands, a man named Pete, finally grinned. Where'd you learn to rope like that? My father, Kaya said simply. Before the relocation. Later, while the men watered the horses, Tom found a calf with a deep gash on its foreleg. Infection had already set in, the flesh red and swollen. Boss, Tom called. This one's bad. Might lose the leg. Kaya knelt beside the calf. She opened the leather pouch at her belt, pulling out dried plants wrapped in cloth. The smell of sage and something sharper filled the air. What's that? Pete asked. Yarrow, willow bark, clay from the creek. She mixed them with water from her canteen, creating a thick paste. Apache medicine, my grandmother taught me. She cleaned the wound with steady hands, then packed the paste into the gash. The calf flinched but didn't fight. Kaya wrapped it with clean cloth torn from her shirt hem. Keep it dry for 3 days, she told Tom. Change the dressing each morning. Infection should clear. Tom nodded slowly. Obliged. That evening, Sam found Kaya sitting near his wife's grave. The small fenced plot sat on a hill overlooking the ranch, a single cottonwood providing shade. Claire's name was carved into a simple wooden cross. Kaya had brought wildflowers, bluebonnets, and Indian paintbrush. She arranged them carefully at the base of the cross. Didn't mean to intrude, Sam said quietly. You're not. Kaya didn't look up. I wanted to meet her. Sam stood beside the fence, his hat in his hands. She was a good woman, strong, kept this place running when I was off chasing cattle. You loved her, more than my own life. Kaya finally looked at him. I know. You talk about her every evening, when you think no one's listening. Sam felt heat rise in his face. I'm sorry. If you're going to be here, I shouldn't. Don't apologize. Kaya stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. Love doesn't disappear just because someone's gone. She was part of building this place, part of building you. Footsteps crunched on gravel. Daniel approached, his expression guarded. He stopped when he saw Kaya at his mother's grave. What are you doing here? His voice was tight. Paying respects, Kaya said evenly. She doesn't need respect from... Daniel bit off the words, but the meaning hung in the air. Daniel, Sam warned. No, Pa. She shows up out of nowhere, right when we're about to lose everything. Convenient timing, don't you think? Kaya met his gaze. You think I'm here for money? For land? I think you're here for something, and I don't trust it. She stepped away from the grave, moving closer to Daniel. Your father saved my life when I was 8 years old. I spent 20 years looking for him. I tracked him through 3 territories, asked in dozens of towns. It took me 2 years just to find out his name. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. I lost my parents when I was 12, Kaya continued. Cholera, same as your mother. I know what it's like to watch someone you love disappear, to feel like you failed them. Her voice softened. Your father didn't fail anyone. Not your mother, not me, and he won't fail this ranch. Daniel looked at his boots. She was the only woman he ever loved. I know, Kaya said. I'm not trying to replace her. I'm just trying to stand beside him while he fights. Silence stretched between them. A hawk cried overhead. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice rough. Tom told me about the rescue, the flood, said Pa nearly drowned pulling you out. He did? And you really came all this way just because of that? Yes. Daniel studied her face, searching for deception. Whatever he found made him exhale slowly. The calf with the infected leg. Pete says it's already healing, walking without a limp. Kaya nodded. Yarrow draws out infection. Willow bark reduces swelling. You know a lot about healing. My grandmother was a medicine woman. She said knowledge is the only thing no one can take from you. Daniel glanced at his father, then back at Kaya. His shoulders dropped slightly. I don't know if I trust you yet, but... He paused. Pa seems different since you got here. Less alone. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't hostility either. Kaya placed a hand on the grave marker, her fingers tracing Clara's name. I promise you, she whispered, too quiet for the men to hear clearly. I'll take care of him. Then she turned and walked back toward the cabin, leaving father and son standing in the evening light. Daniel watched her go. You really gonna marry her, Pa? Sam looked at his wife's grave, then at Kaya's retreating figure. Reckon I might. Even with all this trouble. Especially with all this trouble. Silas Darnell arrived at dusk 3 days later, alone this time. His horse was glossy, well-fed, expensive. He dismounted slowly, making a show of dusting off his coat. Sam stood on the porch, arms crossed. Kaya was inside preparing supper, but he knew she was listening through the open window. Evening, Bridger, Silas called pleasantly. Mind if we talk? Just the two of us? Say what you came to say. Silas climbed the porch steps uninvited, settling into the chair beside the door. He pulled a cigar from his pocket but didn't light it. You're a stubborn man, Sam. I respect that, but stubbornness won't save your ranch. Neither will your crooked survey. Silas smiled. Crooked, that's a strong word. Careful throwing accusations you can't prove. He rolled the cigar between his fingers. I came to make you an offer, a generous one. $2,000, cash. You sign over the deed quietly, no auction, no public spectacle. Walk away with dignity. Sam's hands tightened on the porch rail. $2,000 was more money than he'd see in 5 years of cattle sales. Enough to start over somewhere, buy a small spread, live out his years in peace. That's almost twice what the land's worth at auction, Sam said slowly. I know. Silas leaned back in the chair. Consider it a thank you for not making this uglier than it needs to be. And if I refuse? Silas's expression hardened slightly. Then we proceed as planned. Auction in 55 days. And Sam, he paused. I'll make sure everyone in this territory knows you're harboring a fugitive. That Apache woman? Her tribe left the reservation without federal permission. There's paperwork, warrants. I have friends in the marshal's office. The words hit like a gut punch. Sam kept his face neutral. Kaya's got nothing to do with this. Maybe not. But federal authorities don't see it that way. You marry her, you become an accomplice. Aiding and abetting, that's prison time, Sam, for both of you. Silas stood, tucking the cigar back in his pocket. $2,000. Think about it. Offer expires in 1 week. He descended the steps, then turned back. One more thing. That deed she showed at the meeting, Apache land claim from 1875. I've got lawyers looking into it. Wouldn't be surprised if we find some irregularities. Silas mounted his horse and rode off, the sound of hooves fading into the evening. Inside the cabin, Kaya appeared in the doorway. Her face was calm, but Sam saw the tension in her shoulders. You heard? He asked. Most of it. Sam sank into the chair Silas had vacated. The wood still held the banker's warmth. $2,000. That's a lot of money. It is. Could buy a fresh start, somewhere nobody knows us. Kaya sat on the porch rail facing him. Is that what you want? Sam looked out at the darkening land, the barn he'd built with his own hands, the corral where Clara used to watch him break horses, the graves on the hill, his wife, his parents, 2 infant daughters who'd never seen their first winter. No, he said quietly, but I don't want you in prison either. I knew the risks when I came here. You didn't know about Silas. Kaya smiled faintly. Men like him exist everywhere. I've been running from them my whole life. I'm tired of running. Before Sam could respond, hoofbeats approached again. Tom rode up fast, Daniel beside him. Both men looked grim. Boss, Tom called, dismounting quickly. We got a problem. They gathered in the cabin. Tom spread a hand-drawn map on the table, weighing the corners with coffee cups. County surveyor came out this afternoon, Tom said. While you were talking to Darnell, brought 2 men and new equipment. They remeasured the eastern boundary. Sam leaned over the map, and they moved it. Daniel's voice was tight with anger. 200 yards west. Says the original 1872 survey had the line wrong. With the new boundary, your land comes to 580 acres, not even close to 640. Sam's vision blurred at the edges. That's not possible. I walked those boundaries with the surveyor in 72, helped place the markers myself. I know. Tom pointed to a spot on the map. So I rode out to check, found the old boundary stone, right where it's always been. They didn't move the stone? Kaya asked. They placed a new one, 200 yards west, like Daniel said, but the old one's still there, half buried, covered with 20 years of dirt and moss. Tom's jaw clenched. Boss, the new stone's got fresh chisel marks. You can still smell the cut granite. Sam straightened. Fresh? Can't be more than a week old. Daniel pulled something from his satchel, a piece of paper, dirt-stained. I found this stuffed in a crack under the old stone. Survey notes. From 1872. Original surveyor's signature. He laid it beside the map. Everything matches your deed, Pa. 640 acres, exact boundaries. Tom added quietly. And there's something else. Under the moss on that old stone, initials carved into the base. J.H. Jacob Holt, Sam said. He was the county clerk's assistant back in 72, helped with the survey work. Still alive? Last I heard, he's living in Abilene, retired. Kaya studied the map and the survey notes. This is proof Silas moved the boundary markers, falsified the survey. Proof we can't use, Daniel said bitterly. Not without Judge Moss. And he won't be back for 3 more weeks. Auction's in 55 days. The room fell silent. Outside, crickets began their evening song. The smell of sage drifted through the window, mixing with coffee and lamp oil. Sam sank into his chair, the weight of it all pressing down. 20 years of work, his wife's memory, his children's inheritance. All of it balanced on the edge of a lie. $2,000, he said aloud. We could take it. Start over. Pop, Daniel started. I'm serious. Sam looked at each of them. What if we can't win? What if Silas's lawyers tear apart Kaya's deed? What if Holt won't testify? What if the judge rules against us anyway? His voice cracked. I've already lost Clara. I can't lose Kaya to a prison cell. I can't watch you lose your future because I was too proud to quit. Tom and Daniel exchanged glances. Neither spoke. Kaya knelt beside Sam's chair. She took his scarred hand in both of hers. You remember what you told me in that flood? Stay brave, Sam whispered. The water can't break you if you don't let it. Her grip tightened. This is water, Sam. Different kind, but still water. And I'm not letting it break either of us. Sam wanted to believe her, but the fear was heavier than hope. Daniel folded the survey notes carefully. I'm riding to Abilene tomorrow. I'll find Jacob Holt, get his testimony signed and witnessed. That's 3 days each way, Tom said. Hard riding. Then I'd better leave at dawn. Daniel looked at his father. You don't quit, Pa. Not on this land. Not on her. He nodded toward Kaya. And not on me. Sam's throat tightened. He couldn't speak. Tom stood. I'll keep watching those boundary stones. Maybe Silas will slip up, try to hide the old one, catch him in the act. They filed out, leaving Sam and Kaya alone in the lamplight. I'm scared, Sam admitted quietly. Haven't said that out loud in 20 years, but I'm saying it now. I'm scared of losing everything. Kaya rested her head against his shoulder. Fear means you still have something worth fighting for. Outside, the wind picked up. Sam heard the creak of the barn door, the distant sound of cattle settling for the night, all the rhythms of the ranch he'd built from nothing. He looked down at this foreclosure notice still sitting on the table, 55 days circled in red ink. Beside it, Kaya's Apache deed lay open, the federal seal catching the lamplight like a promise. Or a gamble. 3 days after Daniel left for Abilene, Tom came limping into the barn at midday. His face was pale, sweat soaking through his shirt despite the cool morning. He collapsed against the stall door. Tom? Sam dropped the harness he was mending. What happened? Leg. Tom's voice was tight with pain. Barbed wire. Caught it riding the north fence yesterday. Thought it was just a scratch. Sam helped him to a hay bale. Tom's left pant leg was dark with blood and something else, yellowish fluid seeping through the fabric. The smell hit Sam immediately. Infection. Kaya appeared in the barn doorway, drawn by the commotion. She took one look at Tom's leg and moved quickly. Get him to the cabin, now. They half-carried Tom across the yard. Inside, Kaya cleared the table with one sweep of her arm. Coffee cups clattered to the floor. Lay him down, she ordered. Her voice was calm but absolute. Sam helped Tom onto the table. The foreman's breathing was shallow, rapid. Kaya cut away the pant leg with her knife. The wound was deep, running from mid-calf to ankle. The edges were swollen, angry red spreading outward like fingers. Jesus, Sam whispered. One of the ranch hands, Pete, stood in the doorway. Want me to fetch Doc Anderson from town? No time, Kaya said. She was already unpacking her leather pouch, spreading herbs in small clay jars across the table. This infection's moving fast. By the time the doctor gets here, the poison will be in his blood. Then what do we... I need boiling water, clean cloths, whiskey. She didn't look up, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. And everyone out except Sam. Pete hesitated, then ran to get the supplies. Kaya sorted through her herbs. Dried plants Sam didn't recognize, roots, small bundles wrapped in cloth. She selected 3, crushing them together in a wooden bowl. The smell was sharp, medicinal, yarrow, he guessed, and something bitter. This is going to hurt, she told Tom. He nodded, teeth clenched. Do it. Pete returned with a steaming kettle and a bottle of whiskey. Kaya poured the whiskey directly into the wound. Tom's back arched, a strangled sound escaping his throat. Sam held his shoulders down. Again, Kaya said. Sam poured more whiskey. Tom's knuckles went white, gripping the table edge. Kaya mixed clay from a small jar with creek water, creating a thick paste. She added the crushed herbs, stirring until it formed a smooth consistency. The smell reminded Sam of earth after rain, with an edge of something ancient. Apache medicine, she said quietly, reading Sam's expression. My grandmother used it for battlefield wounds. Draws out infection, stops the rot. She packed the paste into the wound with careful fingers. Tom hissed, but didn't cry out. She wrapped the leg with clean cloth strips, binding it tight. Change the dressing twice a day, she instructed Sam. Morning and evening. If the red spreads past this line, she marked Tom's knee with a charcoal stick, we take the leg. Understand? Sam nodded, his throat dry. Don't let him walk on it for 3 days. Infection needs to drain before the wound can close. They moved Tom to the small guest room off the kitchen. He was asleep within minutes, exhaustion and pain dragging him under. Sam found Kaya outside, washing her hands in the trough. The sun was high now, the day warming despite the early spring chill. You sure about this? He asked. Maybe we should send for the doctor anyway. Your town doctor would take the leg. Kaya dried her hands on her skirt. It's what they're trained to do, cut away the problem. And your way? Fixes the problem. She looked at him steadily. Trust me. That evening, word spread through the bunkhouse. By morning, 2 ranch hands had quietly asked Kaya for remedies, one for a persistent cough, another for pain in his joints. She treated both without question. By the second day, Tom's fever had broken, the red lines receding from his knee. On the 3rd morning, he sat up on his own, asking for coffee and complaining about lying around like an invalid. Sam checked the wound during the evening dressing change. The swelling was gone. The skin around the cut looked pink and healthy, new tissue forming where infection had been eating through muscle. It's healing, Sam said, disbelief coloring his voice. Of course it is. Kaya packed away the remaining herbs. Her medicine bundle was nearly empty now, the leather worn thin from 20 years of use. That afternoon, 3 townswomen arrived at the ranch. Sam recognized them from church. The baker's wife, the school teacher, the woman who ran the boarding house. They came bearing a basket covered with cloth. We heard what Miss Redstone did for Tom, the baker's wife said. She was a stern woman, not given to sentiment. And we heard she's staying here, marrying you. That's right, Sam said carefully. The women exchanged glances. Then the school teacher stepped forward, pulling back the cloth. Inside the basket was fabric, good cotton, dyed a soft cream color, enough for a dress. For the wedding, she said simply, if she wants it. Kaya appeared on the porch. The women turned to look at her. My son had the fever last winter, the boarding house woman said quietly. Doc Anderson said to make arrangements, but he lived. I always wondered why. She gestured to the basket. Now I know what Apache medicine can do. Tom's walking. That leg should be gone. We judged you, the schoolteacher admitted, before we knew you. That was wrong. The baker's wife nodded. Town's full of talk, Miss Redstone. Some good, some bad, but facts are facts. You saved Tom's leg. That counts for something. Kaya descended the steps slowly. She took the basket, fingers brushing the soft fabric. Thank you. There's more, the boarding house woman said. If you need witnesses, for the wedding or the auction, some of us will stand with you. The women left as quietly as they'd come. Sam stood beside Kaya on the porch, watching them ride away. Didn't expect that. People surprise you, Kaya said. She held the basket carefully, as if it might vanish. Sometimes in good ways. Inside the cabin, Tom called out, Somebody gonna bring me supper, or do I gotta limp over there myself? Sam laughed, the first real laugh he'd had in weeks. But that night, lying awake in his bunk, he thought about the auction. 52 days left. Daniel still hadn't returned from Abilene. Judge Moss was still weeks away, and Silas Darnell was still smiling. The saloon was crowded on Saturday night. Sam pushed through the doors, needing supplies from the general store next door before it closed. The piano player stopped mid-song when he entered. Conversations died. Silas Darnell sat at a corner table with 3 men Sam recognized, railroad investors from Austin. They looked up with the casual interest of predators watching prey wander past. Bridger, Silas called out, his voice carrying across the room. Join us for a drink. Got business, Sam said. This is business. Silas gestured to an empty chair. These gentlemen are curious about your situation. Sam's jaw tightened, but he crossed to the table. Standing felt safer than sitting. One of the investors, a man with silver mutton chops and expensive clothes, smiled coldly. We've heard interesting stories, Mr. Bridger, about your Apache housekeeper. She's not my housekeeper. No? The man's eyebrows rose. What is she then? My fiancée. The table erupted in laughter. Not cruel exactly, but dismissive. The kind of laughter reserved for old men making fools of themselves. Silas wiped his eyes. Sam, you're what, 58? And she's, what, 30? Maybe younger? He shook his head with mock sympathy. Everyone knows what's happening here. And what's that? The girl's smart. Desperate, but smart. She needs protection. You need, well, Silas gestured vaguely. Companionship. It's a transaction. Nothing wrong with that, but calling it love? More laughter from the investors. Sam's hands curled into fists. Another investor leaned forward. Word is she's using Indian witchcraft on your men. Got Tom Cassidy walking around after Doc Anderson said the leg was done for. She used medicine, Sam said flatly. Same kind her people have used for generations. Witchcraft, the man repeated. And now she's got you believing she loves you. Got you ready to lose everything fighting for a worthless claim. That's not love, Bridger. That's manipulation. Silas raised his glass in a mock toast. Old fool thinks a squaw's affection is real. She's after your land, Sam. Soon as the auction's over and the dust settles, she'll be gone. Probably already has another old rancher picked out. Sam took a step toward the table. The room went silent again. The bartender cleared his throat nervously. Sam, maybe I should what? Sam's voice was low, dangerous. Maybe I should let these men who've never worked a day's honest labor tell me about my life, about a woman they've never met. Silas's smile faded slightly. Easy now. You want to call me a fool? Fine. You want to call my claim worthless? That's what courts are for, but you talk about Kaya like she's... He couldn't finish. The rage was too hot, too close to the surface. One of the investors stood, his chair scraping loud. Are you threatening us? I'm telling you to keep her name out of your mouth. Silas rose smoothly, positioning himself between Sam and the investors. Gentlemen, please. Mr. Bridger's under a lot of stress. Facing eviction does that to a man. He turned to Sam, voice dropping. You should go, before you make this worse. Sam wanted to swing, wanted to flip the table, break Silas's jaw, make them all choke on their laughter, but he was 58 years old and outnumbered, and violence wouldn't save his ranch. He turned and walked out. Behind him, the laughter resumed. He made it as far as the hitching post before his hands started shaking. The next morning, Daniel returned from Abilene. His horse was lathered, exhausted. Daniel himself looked like he hadn't slept in days. Tom and Sam met him at the barn. Did you find Holt? Sam asked. Daniel dismounted stiffly. Found him. Took 2 days to track him down. He's living with his daughter on a small farm outside town. And? He remembers the 1872 survey. Remembers you, Pa. Said you helped place every boundary marker personally. Walked the entire property line. Daniel pulled a folded document from his saddlebag. He signed a statement, notarized, says the markers were exactly where your deed claims, says he never authorized any changes. Sam took the paper, reading it quickly. Jacob Holt's signature was shaky but clear that the notary's seal was dated 3 days ago. This is good, Tom said. Real good. There's more. Daniel looked at his father. Holt said Silas came to see him 2 months ago, offered him $500 to forget about the survey, to say the records were unclear. 500? Sam's gut twisted. Holt refused. Told Silas to go to hell. That's when Silas stopped asking and started moving markers. Daniel's voice hardened. Pa, Holt's willing to testify. In person. At the auction if we need him. For the first time in weeks, Sam felt something like hope. Tom grabbed his hat. I'm riding the fence line again. That old boundary stone. We need to protect it. Make sure Silas doesn't try to destroy the evidence. Take Pete with you, Sam said. Don't go alone. Tom nodded and headed for his horse. Daniel lingered. Pa, I heard about what happened at the saloon. Pete told me. Sam's jaw tightened. Word travels fast. Is it true? What Silas said about Kaya? Which part? That she's using you, that she'll leave after the auction? Sam looked his son in the eye. You believe that? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, then he shook his head. No, I've watched her these past weeks. The way she works, the way she talks about you when you're not around. That's not manipulation, that's... He struggled for the word. Real. Then why ask? Because people in town are saying it. And if enough people say something, even a lie starts to feel like truth. Daniel handed over the notarized statement. We're close, Pa. We've got proof of fraud, we've got Kaya's deed, we've got a witness, but we need to hold together. No mistakes, no giving Silas ammunition. Sam folded the document carefully. Your mother would be proud of you, the man you've become. Daniel's throat worked. She'd be proud of you, too, for not giving up. That afternoon, Tom rode back early. His face was grim. Found something, he said, dismounting quickly. They followed him to the fence line, a 2-hour ride north. The old boundary stone was exactly where Tom had described, half buried, covered with moss and dirt from 20 years of weather. Tom knelt beside it, brushing away debris from the base. There, carved into the granite beneath the moss, were the initials J.H. Jacob Holt, Sam breathed. That's not all. Tom pointed to a second set of marks, deeper and cleaner, fresh. Someone tried to chisel them out, recently. See the white granite dust, still in the cracks. Sam ran his finger over the marks. The stone felt cold, solid, undeniable. Silas, Daniel said quietly. He knows we found it. He's trying to destroy it. Too late now, Tom said. We've got 3 witnesses who've seen it, and we've got Holt's statement matching the initials. Sam stood, looking across his land. The boundary stretched east as far as he could see, every inch of it paid for with sweat and years. We're bringing this to the auction, Sam said. All of it. The stone, Holt's testimony, Kaya's deed, we lay it all out in front of the whole town. Daniel gripped his father's shoulder. 49 days left. We can do this. But as they rode back to the ranch, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that Silas had one more move left to play. Sam sat at Clara's grave as the sun dropped low. The sky was streaked with orange and purple, the kind of evening she'd always loved. He'd been sitting there for an hour, hat in his hands, words caught somewhere between his chest and his throat. Kaya approached quietly, her footsteps barely audible in the grass. She didn't speak, just sat beside him on the ground. I'm thinking about taking Silas's offer, Sam said finally. The words hung in the cooling air. Kaya didn't react immediately. She picked a blade of grass, running it between her fingers. $2,000. Yeah. That's what your land is worth to you? What your wife's memory is worth? Sam flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? She turned to look at him. You built this place with her. Every fence post, every building, you're sitting at her grave telling her you're ready to sell it to the man trying to steal it. I'm trying to protect you. His voice rose. You heard what Silas said. Federal warrants. Prison. I can't... He stopped, swallowing hard. I already lost Clara. I can't watch them take you too. So you'll give up instead. It's not giving up, it's being smart. We take the money, we leave, we start over somewhere Silas's lawyers can't touch us. Kaya was quiet for a long moment. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the smell of sage and distant rain. Finally she spoke, her voice soft but firm. You remember what you told me in that flood, when I was 8 years old and drowning? Stay brave, she repeated. You said the water can't break you if you don't let it. You held onto that rope even when the current tried to take you. Your hands were bleeding, I could see it, but you didn't let go. Sam looked at his scarred palm, the 3-fingered burn mark still visible after 20 years. This is water too, Sam. Different kind, but still water. And you're letting it take you. I'm tired, Kaya, his voice cracked. I've been fighting my whole life. Fighting land, fighting weather, fighting to keep this place alive. And now I'm fighting lawyers and bankers and men with more money than God. Maybe it's time to admit I can't win. She reached into her pouch and pulled out the leather medicine bundle. Nearly empty now, the herbs mostly gone. She placed it on Clara's headstone, the worn leather dark against the pale wood. This bundle? My grandmother gave it to me before she died. Said it held everything I'd need to survive. Medicine, protection, memory. She traced the stitching with one finger. I've carried it for 20 years. Through hunger, through cold, through watching my people disappear. Every time I wanted to quit, I opened it and remembered. Survival isn't about being strong all the time. It's about being strong one more time, then you want to give up. Sam stared at the bundle. The leather was cracked, faded, held together by repairs and stubbornness. If you sell this land, Kaya said quietly, you don't just lose the ranch, you lose your name. Everyone will remember Sam Bridger as the man who let Silas Darnell win. The man who ran. She met his eyes. Is that the story you want told at your grave? He wanted to argue, wanted to explain that survival mattered more than pride, that living poor was better than dying broke. But the words wouldn't come, because she was right. I'm scared, he admitted. Haven't said that out loud in 20 years, but I'm saying it now. I'm scared of losing everything, scared of dragging you down with me. Then be scared. Kaya took his hand. But don't quit. They sat in silence as the stars began to appear. Finally, Sam stood, helping Kaya to her feet. All right, he said. We fight. She smiled. We fight. The next morning, the town square bustled with activity. Workers hammered together a wooden platform, the auction stage. The sound echoed off the buildings, each strike a countdown. Sam stood watching from across the street. Kaya beside him, Daniel and Tom flanking them. A small crowd had gathered, some to help, others to spectate. The divide in the town was visible in how people positioned themselves. Homesteaders on one side, merchants and railroad supporters on the other. Silas emerged from the land office, supervising the construction. He saw Sam and waved cheerfully, as if they were old friends. Looking good, don't you think? Silas called out. Should hold a nice crowd. 47 days, Bridger. You change your mind about my offer. Door's still open. Sam didn't respond. Father Miguel approached from the church, carrying a worn leather Bible. He set it on a corner of the platform with a solid thump. What's that for? One of the workers asked. Witnesses swear truth on something, Father Miguel said mildly. Figured we'd have that ready. Silas's smile faltered slightly. This is an auction, Father, not a trial. Isn't it? The old priest met his gaze steadily. Man's whole life is being sold. Seems like truth should have a place in that. Murmurs from the crowd. A few homesteaders nodded approval. The auctioneer arrived, a neutral man from 2 counties over, hired specifically because he had no stake in local politics. He was lean, weathered, with eyes that missed nothing. He studied the platform, tested its stability, then noticed the Bible. Father's right, the auctioneer said. I've seen enough crooked land sales to know someone always lies. This time, we'll know who. He looked at Silas. You got a problem with that, Mr. Darnell? Silas forced a smile. Of course not. Truth serves everyone. But his hand tightened on his walking stick, knuckles white. That afternoon, the townswomen returned to the ranch. This time there were 5 of them, including the baker's wife. They brought fabric, needles, thread. For your wedding dress, the schoolteacher explained to Kaya. We'll sew it together, all of us. Kaya looked at Sam, uncertain. Go on, he said gently. I got work to do anyway. The women gathered on the porch, spreading fabric across their laps. Their voices rose and fell in comfortable rhythm. Talk of stitching, of children, of weather. Slowly, carefully, they drew Kaya into the conversation. Sam watched from the barn door. Daniel came to stand beside him. She's winning them over, Daniel said quietly. 1 person at a time. Your mother did the same thing. When we first came here, people didn't trust outsiders. She baked bread, mended clothes, helped birth babies. After a while, they forgot she wasn't born here. Kaya's different, though. Ma was white, from Missouri. Kaya's Apache, Sam finished. I know. Makes it harder, but not impossible. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm glad you're fighting, Pa, for what it's worth. It's worth everything. That evening, as the sun set and the women finished their sewing, Kaya held up the dress. Simple cotton, cream-colored, with small blue beads sewn along the collar. Apache design, integrated seamlessly. It's beautiful, she whispered. The baker's wife patted her hand. Every bride deserves something beautiful, even when times are hard. After the women left, Sam and Kaya sat on the porch. The dress hung on a nail inside, visible through the window. 47 days, Sam said. 47 days, Kaya echoed. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of distant rain. Somewhere in town, Silas Darnell was planning his next move. But here, on this porch, 2 people who'd survived floods and loss and 20 years of loneliness decided that hope was worth the risk, even if the water was rising again. The morning of the auction arrived with a sunrise that painted the sky gold and crimson. Sam stood on the porch watching it, coffee cup warming his hands. He'd barely slept. Kaya emerged from the cabin wearing the dress the townswomen had made. The cream fabric caught the early light, the blue Apache beadwork at her collar like small pieces of sky. She'd braided her hair with leather cord, simple and dignified. "You look," Sam's voice caught, "beautiful." She smiled. "Your wife would approve?" "She'd love you." They rode to town together. Daniel and Tom followed with a wagon carrying their evidence. The old boundary stone wrapped in canvas, Jacob Holt's notarized statement, survey documents, and Kaya's Apache deed in a leather portfolio. Redemption's town square was packed, easily 200 people, maybe more. Homesteaders, ranchers, merchants, railroad men. They'd come from 3 counties drawn by gossip and curiosity in the spectacle of a man's life being auctioned off. The platform stood in the center, the Bible still resting on its corner. The auctioneer stood beside it, checking his pocket watch. Silas Darnell waited near the land office steps, flanked by his lawyer and 2 railroad investors. His expression was confident, almost bored. Judge Harlan Moss sat in a chair near the platform. He'd arrived the night before, a full week early, riding hard from the hill country after Father Miguel's telegram. At 70 years old, the journey had cost him, but his eyes were sharp and his jaw set. Sam helped Kaya down from the wagon. The crowd parted as they walked toward the platform. Whispers followed them like wind through grass. "That's her, the Apache woman." "Heard she used witchcraft on Tom Cassidy." "No, heard she saved his leg. Doc Anderson would have taken it." "She's pretty, younger than I expected. Probably after his money." "What money? Man's being evicted." The auctioneer banged his gavel. The crowd quieted. "We're here for the public auction of Homestead Claim 1872 B47, commonly known as the Bridger Ranch. 640 acres, more or less, is surveyed." He glanced at Judge Moss. "However, before we proceed, His Honor has requested the right to hear evidence regarding the validity of this sale." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Silas's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The county has clear authority." "The county's authority ends where federal law begins," Judge Moss interrupted. His voice carried across the square, despite his age. "Homestead patents are federal. If there's a question of fraud, I have jurisdiction." He looked at Sam. "Mr. Bridger, present your case." Sam climbed onto the platform, his boots loud on the new wood. Daniel and Tom followed with the canvas-wrapped stone. 20 years ago," Sam began, his voice steady, "I filed a homestead claim under the 1862 Act. I built a cabin, worked the land, met every requirement. The territorial surveyor, Jacob Holt, certified my boundaries, 640 acres exact." He nodded to Daniel, who unwrapped the boundary stone. The crowd pressed closer. The stone was weathered granite, moss-covered on 3 sides. But the 4th side, where Daniel had cleaned it, showed clear markings, the date 1872, and beneath it, carved wad deep, JH. "This stone sat at my eastern boundary for 20 years, Sam continued, "until 2 months ago, when Silas Darnell had a new survey done. That survey moved the line 200 yards west, cut my land to 580 acres, not enough for a valid homestead patent." Silas's lawyer stood again. "The original survey had errors. We corrected them." "By moving a stone marker that's been in the ground for 2 decades?" Tom called out. "Fresh chisel marks say different." Judge Moss examined the stone closely, running his fingers over the carved initials. "J.H. Jacob Holt, correct?" "Yes, sir." Daniel handed him the notarized statement. "Mr. Holt's testimony. He swears the original survey was accurate. Says Mr. Darnell offered him $500 to claim otherwise. He refused." The crowd erupted. Judge Moss banged his gavel for silence. Silas stood, his face flushed. "Jacob Holt is 78 years old. His memory is questionable at best." "My memory is fine, Darnell." The crowd parted. Jacob Holt stood at the edge of the square, leaning on a cane. His daughter supported his other arm. He looked frail, but his voice was strong. "I remember every survey I worked, especially that one. Sam Bridger walked every foot of that property line with me. We placed 4 cornerstones ourselves. That one," he pointed at the stone on the platform, "was the northeast marker, my initials, my work, and it hasn't moved an inch until you decided it had." Silas's confidence cracked. "This is... you can't..." "Can't what?" Judge Moss's voice was cold. "Can't allow a witness to testify under oath. Mr. Holt, approach the platform." Holt climbed the steps slowly. The auctioneer handed him the Bible. Holt placed his weathered hand on it. "Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?" "I do." Did Silas Darnell offer you money to falsify records? He did. $500, I told him no. And the boundary stone, is it authentic? It is. I carved those initials myself in May 1872. Judge Moss turned to Silas. Mr. Darnell, you have anything to say? Silas's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Silas shook his head, stepping forward. Your Honor, even if the survey is disputed, there's still the matter of... The Apache deed, Kaya said quietly. Every head turned. She stood at the base of the platform, her hand resting on the leather portfolio. May I approach, Your Honor? Judge Moss nodded. Kaya climbed the steps with calm dignity. She opened the portfolio, removing the parchment carefully. The federal seal caught the morning sun. This deed grants 200 acres at Red Bluff Creek to Chief Redstone of the Apache Nation, 1875. Signed by the territorial governor, registered with the Federal Land Office. She spread it on the platform. My grandfather. When he died, it passed to me. Father Miguel stepped forward. I've verified the deed's authenticity, Your Honor. Federal registry properly executed. The land described, he pointed to the map, overlaps Mr. Bridger's eastern boundary by approximately 180 acres. The crowd was silent now, everyone straining to hear. Judge Moss studied both deeds, Sam's homestead patent and Kaya's Apache claim. He pulled a surveyor's map from his coat, comparing the boundaries. If Miss Redstone's deed is valid, he said slowly, then any auction of the Bridger property must exclude the overlapping parcel, which means, he calculated quickly, the remaining acreage for sale would be approximately 460 acres, not enough to justify the county's foreclosure action under homestead law. Silas's face went white. Your Honor, you can't possibly... Can't what? Honor federal law? Judge Moss's eyes were hard. Or are you saying federal treaties with native tribes don't matter? The railroad investors behind Silas shifted uncomfortably. Publicly challenging Apache land rights was a political minefield. Silas's lawyer grabbed his arm, whispering urgently. Silas jerked away. This is a farce. That woman shows up conveniently. Careful, Mr. Darnell. Judge Moss's voice dropped to something dangerous. You're in a legal proceeding. Slander has consequences. Tom stepped forward. Your Honor, there's one more thing. He pulled a gold pocket watch from his coat. Found this near the new boundary stone. Engraved. Southern Pacific Railway. Investor number 47. He tossed it onto the platform. It landed with a heavy clink. Silas's hand went instinctively to his vest pocket, then froze. That's mine, he said quietly. I must have dropped it while inspecting. While moving the markers, Tom finished. Funny how you lost it right where the fraud happened. The crowd turned on Silas like a wave. Voices rose, angry now. He tried to steal the ranch. Railroad money. I knew it. Fraud. He committed fraud. Judge Moss banged his gavel repeatedly. Order, order in this proceeding. The noise died slowly. Judge Moss stood, his old frame rigid with authority. Based on the evidence presented, authenticated boundary markers, sworn testimony from the original surveyor, a valid Apache land deed that supersedes county jurisdiction, and circumstantial evidence of fraud, I'm ruling the county's foreclosure action invalid. The auction is hereby canceled. Cheers erupted from the homesteaders. The railroad investors backed away from Silas, distancing themselves. Judge Moss wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm ordering an investigation into Silas Darnell's land dealings. Sheriff, take him into custody pending formal charges. The sheriff, who'd been standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, moved forward. Silas tried to run, but Tom and two ranch hands blocked his path. The sheriff pulled iron shackles from his belt. The sound of them closing around Silas's wrists was sharp, final. This isn't over, Silas hissed at Sam. I have lawyers. I have connections. Sam looked at him with something close to pity. You had land you didn't earn. Now you've got nothing but time to think about it. The crowd parted as the sheriff led Silas away. The auction platform stood empty now, except for the Bible, the boundary stone, and two deeds that had saved a ranch. Judge Moss approached Sam, extending his hand. You fought well, old friend. Couldn't have done it without... Sam turned to find Kaya. She stood at the edge of the platform, surrounded by townswomen. They were touching her dress, admiring the beadwork, asking about the wedding. She looked up, met Sam's eyes, and smiled. They married at noon the same day, while the town was still gathered. No reason to wait, Sam said. They'd already waited 20 years. Father Miguel performed the ceremony at Red Bluff Creek, the same cottonwood tree where Sam had pulled Kaya from the flood, standing as their witness. The water flowed calm and clear, nothing like the raging torrent of 1872. Kaya wore her cream dress, the Apache beadwork catching sunlight. Sam wore his best shirt, cleaned and pressed, his hat in his hands. Daniel stood beside his father, Tom beside Kaya. A small crowd gathered on the bank. Ranch hands, townswomen, homesteaders who'd stood with them saw. Father Miguel opened his Bible, but before he could speak, Kaya reached into her pouch. She pulled out the leather medicine bundle and walked to the cottonwood. She tied it carefully to a low branch, the worn leather swaying gently in the breeze. "For luck?" the baker's wife whispered. "For memory," Kaya said quietly. "This tree saved my life once. Now it witnesses my future." Father Miguel smiled. "Shall we begin?" The vows were simple. Sam's voice was steady, though his hands shook. Kaya spoke her promises in English, then repeated them softly in Apache. The language was strange to most ears, but beautiful. "By the authority given me," Father Miguel said, "I pronounce you husband and wife." Sam kissed her gently, mindful of the watching crowd, but Kaya pulled him closer, and the kiss deepened. Cheers erupted from the homesteaders. Even Daniel smiled. That evening they gathered at the ranch. The townswomen had brought food, bread, roasted chicken, vegetables, Someone produced a fiddle. Music drifted across the ranch as the sun set, golden light painting everything soft. Judge Moss sat on the porch with Tom and Father Miguel, drinking coffee and watching the celebration. "You know," the judge said quietly, "I've ruled on a lot of land cases, but I've never seen one solved by love before." "Love and a good lawyer," Tom said, grinning. "Love and stubbornness," Father Miguel corrected. "That woman rode 600 miles to find a man she barely remembered. That's not luck. That's destiny." Sam and Kaya danced, slow, awkward, neither of them natural at it. But they moved together, her head resting against his shoulder, his scarred hand holding hers. Daniel approached with a young woman Sam didn't recognize. "Pa, this is Emma, from Abilene, Jacob Holt's granddaughter. Well, we've been writing letters." Sam raised an eyebrow. "That's so." Daniel's ears reddened. "Figured while I was there, might as well find yourself a good woman." Sam grinned. "About time." As darkness fell, people began drifting home. Tom and the ranch hands returned to the bunkhouse. Father Miguel and Judge Moss rode back to town together, still debating legal precedent. Finally, only Sam and Kaya remained on the porch. The night was cool, stars spreading endlessly overhead. Somewhere distant, a coyote called. "You think she'd approve?" Sam asked softly. "Clara?" Kaya was quiet for a moment. "I think she loved you enough to want you happy, even if it meant someone else making you smile." Sam's throat tightened. "I'll never forget her." "I'd worry if you did. Love doesn't disappear just because someone's gone. You taught me that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. Sam thought about the 20 years since the flood, all the work, all the loss, all the lonely nights wondering if his life meant anything beyond cattle and fences. "You know what's strange?" he said finally. "I spent 2 decades thinking I saved you, but you're the one who saved me." Kaya laced her fingers through his. "Maybe we saved each other." 6 months later, the ranch thrived. The cattle were fat from good grass, the fences stood straight and strong, and Kaya's garden produced herbs that half the county came to buy. Silas Darnell was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 5 years in territorial prison. The railroad found another route, one that didn't require stealing land from homesteaders. The county clerk resigned quietly and moved east, his reputation ruined. Jacob Holt's testimony became legend. He died peacefully the following spring, his granddaughter Emma at his bedside. Daniel proposed to Emma that summer. They married in the fall. On warm evenings, neighbors would ride past the Bridger Ranch and see Sam and Kaya on the porch. Sometimes she'd be sewing, teaching Emma or the townswomen about Apache patterns. Sometimes he'd be whittling, his scarred hands creating small wooden animals for Daniel's future children. The town doctor began apprenticing under Kaya, learning her herbal remedies. Children who'd been sick recovered. Old wounds that wouldn't heal finally closed. People stopped calling it witchcraft and started calling it wisdom. One evening, as autumn turned the hills gold, Kaya rested her hand on her belly. Sam noticed the gesture, his eyes widening. "You sure?" he whispered. "I'm sure." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "Never thought I'd have this again. A family. A future." You had it all along, she said softly. You just needed someone to remind you. The sun set over Red Bluff Creek, the same creek where a flood had once tried to take a child's life, where a man had jumped in without thinking, without asking for anything in return, where 20 years later that child had come back to save him in turn. The medicine bundle still hung from the cottonwood, weathered now but holding, a symbol of survival, of memory, of love that waited 2 decades to finally come home. And on the porch of the Bridger Ranch, 2 people who'd once been strangers sat together in the gathering darkness, watching stars appear one by one, brave enough, at last, to believe in tomorrow. Now, I reckon some folks hearing this story might wonder if it all happened just the way I told it. If an Apache woman really rode 600 miles to find a cowboy who'd saved her life. If a leather medicine bundle and an old land deed could stop a railroad man's greed. Well, friend, I was there, saw the sunrise that morning over Red Bluff Creek, heard Judge Moss's gavel fall, watched Silas Darnell's face turn white when that boundary stone came out of the wagon. Truth is, most of us spend our whole lives thinking kindness don't matter much. That one good act disappears like smoke on the wind. But I'm here to tell you, mercy has a long memory, longer than hate, longer than greed. Sometimes it takes 20 years to circle back, but when it does, it changes everything. Sam Bridger didn't ask for a second chance at love. Didn't think his old scarred hands deserved to hold something gentle again. But Kaya Redstone knew something most of us forget. A life saved echoes forward, ripples out like water from a stone. You never know who's watching, who's remembering, who's carrying your words in their heart long after you've forgotten speaking them. They're still out there, you know? The ranch runs cattle and healing herbs now. Kaya teaches Daniel's children which plants stop fever, which roots bind wounds. The grandkids don't think twice about their Apache grandmother. To them, she's just grandma, makes the best cornbread in 3 counties and knows every star by name. That branding iron hangs in the barn, ain't been heated in years. Sam says he's done marking things, says love don't need a brand, just 2 people brave enough to stay. And that medicine bundle still hangs from the cottonwood at Red Bluff. Leather's cracked and faded now, but it holds. Just like the promise it represents. By God's mercy, some stories end right. Some folks get to go home,